When you think of the saloons of the American West, what kind of food do you picture? Maybe some steak cooked over an open fire, a hunk of bread with beans piled on top. Or maybe you're thinking of something a little more exotic, like rattlesnake or roadkill. Well, whatever you've got in mind, chances are that you're exactly right. Because when it comes to the food served up in the saloons of the Old West, there was no shortage of options for hungry patrons. In fact, some of the most legendary meals were created in saloons, while others were simply copied after those already being served up by traveling chefs. And even though many of them are no longer around to tell their side of the story, we can still get a taste of history by recreating some of these legendary dishes today. So grab your napkin and your plate, because it's time to dig into some of the best foods ever served up in a saloon. Next, we'll travel back in time to experience a taste of history. All aboard the Mayflower. Alright, so this isn't actually the name of a dish, but as you probably already know, the Mayflower was the ship that brought the first English settlers to New England in 1620, and as far as we're concerned, that makes it the patron saint of pilgrims, and one heck of a good excuse for a dessert. Now, if you're a fan of fruitcake, then you're going to love this recipe. And if you're not a fan of fruitcake, well, you might want to stick to the coffee. To make this dish, you're going to need dried fruit, flour, butter, sugar, spices, and alcohol. Although they didn't have any recipes written down, historians do believe that the settlers did enjoy fruitcakes made with currants, raisins, chopped dates, figs, and prunes. In fact, people still eat similar cakes during the holidays today. And since we're big fans of tradition, we're going to go ahead and include some brandy in our batter. And while we don't know exactly how much spice they used back then, we're going to go easy on the cinnamon and nutmeg so we don't that sweet fruit flavor. We're also going to throw in some chopped walnuts for extra texture and flavor. Then, just like the Mayflower, we'll put all of our ingredients in a bowl and mix them together. But unlike the Mayflower, which took 2 months to reach land, this cake will be ready to eat in about an hour. And if you want to impress your guests, try serving it with a dollop of eggnog. Oysters Rockefeller. Oysters Rockefeller is a classic dish consisting of fresh oysters topped with spinach, bacon, and a rich sauce usually made with butter and Parmesan cheese. It originated at Antoine's restaurant in New Orleans around 1915 and was named after the famous French family. It first appeared on menus across the country in the 1930s and quickly became a favorite among those looking to indulge in a little luxury. Now we're going to take our fresh, shucked oysters and drain them, then place them on some crushed ice until we're ready to use them. Next, we'll chop up some celery and onion and saute them in butter until they're soft. Then add in some minced garlic and cook for another minute before adding in our spinach. Continue cooking until the spinach has wilted, and once it has, we can transfer everything into a blender along with some Parmesan cheese, lemon juice, salt, and pepper. And if you'd like to get fancy, you can add a splash of Pernod, which is a type of anise-flavored French liquor. Then we'll blend everything together until it's smooth and creamy. Now we'll heat up some oil in a skillet and fry up some bacon until it's crispy. Once it is, we'll remove most of the fat from the pan and add in our oyster mixture. Then we'll top it off with the rest of our bacon and serve it all over a nice bed of hot white rice. And if you're feeling really adventurous, you can even add some chopped alligator meat to the mix. Chicken bog. Now let's head on over to South Carolina, where we'll learn how to make chicken bog, which is a traditional low-country dish made with chicken, rice, vegetables, and sometimes seafood. It's believed that the dish originated with Native Americans who would serve it to English traders. Now, chicken bog is pretty easy to make, and it starts off just like any other chicken and rice dish. First, we'll season up some chicken pieces and then brown them on both sides in some hot oil. Once we've got some nice brown spots, we'll remove our chicken from the pan and set them to the side. Now we'll add some chopped onion and bell peppers to the pan and cook them until they're soft. Then we'll add in a cup of rice and cook it for a couple minutes before adding in some chicken broth and bringing it to a boil. Now we'll add our chicken back into the pan along with some frozen okra and green beans. Then we'll reduce the heat, cover the pan, and let it simmer until the rice is tender and the chicken is cooked through. And once it's done, feel free to serve it up with a side of collard greens or whatever else you've got on hand. Lobster thermidor. Now let's head on over to France, where we'll learn how to make lobster thermidor, which is a classic French dish consisting of lobster meat and a creamy sauce. It was created in 1893 by a chef named Auguste Escoffier, and it quickly became one of the most popular dishes in fine dining. Now we're gonna start by cooking our lobster in boiling water until it's pink and tender. Once it's done cooking, we'll remove the meat from the shell and set it to the side. Now we'll heat up some butter in a saucepan and add in some chopped shallots and garlic and cook them until they're fragrant. Then we'll add in some dry white wine and bring it to a boil. Once it's boiling, we'll reduce the heat and let it simmer until the liquid has reduced by half. Now we'll add in some heavy cream and some chopped fresh parsley and thyme and let it simmer for another minute or two. Now we'll add in our lobster meat and gently toss it to coat it in the sauce. Now we'll transfer everything into a baking dish and top it off with some grated cheese. Then we'll bake it in the oven until the cheese is melted and bubbly. And once it's done, feel free to serve it up with a side of mashed potatoes or whatever else you've got on hand. Beef stroganoff. Beef stroganoff is a classic Russian dish consisting of beef strips cooked in a sour cream sauce and served over noodles or rice. It's believed to have been created in the 19th century by French chefs working in Russia, and it quickly became a staple of Russian cuisine. Now we're gonna start by browning some beef strips in a hot skillet. Once they're nicely browned, we'll remove them from the pan and set them to the side. Now we'll add some chopped onion and garlic to the pan and cook them until they're soft and fragrant. Then we'll add in some sliced mushrooms and cook them until they're browned. Next, we'll add in some flour and cook it for a minute or two until it's absorbed all of the excess moisture from the pan. Then we'll gradually whisk in some sour cream and bring it to a simmer. Now we'll add our beef back into the pan, along with some beef broth and some chopped fresh parsley and thyme. Then we'll let it simmer until the sauce has thickened. And once it's thickening, we can serve it all over some nice egg noodles. And if you want to get fancy, you can even add some chopped, hard-boiled eggs to the mix. So there you have it, 5 legendary meals that were once served up in saloons. And if you're a fan of historic eats, then be sure to check out our other videos. Until then, thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time. And now you know a little more about what you would have eaten if you happened to step into one of the many saloons dotting the landscape of the American West during its heyday. Do you plan on trying any of these recipes? Let us know in the comments section below. And while you're there, remember to like and subscribe so that you never miss an exciting episode. As always, thanks for watching. Bye!